expansions of existing structures is one thing, but, citing an entirely new facility, is a completely separate issue, and I just wanted to make a clarification on that. I want to talk about the new legislation in regards to the structure of the EFSB. A lot of people have mentioned tonight that the EFSB has never made any mistakes. I'm going to disagree with that and say that they have made a mistake. I think they made a large mistake. If you, in the siting of Ocean State Power over 20 years ago, what you'll see if you read through those thousands of documents that for some reason all of us felt compelled to do recently, you're going to see that they proposed a power plant, one where this one is being proposed, one at Sherman Farm, and several other sites throughout Rhode Island and Massachusetts. And what they found is that the site that it's being proposed at right now, it was so environmentally sensitive, and it was within thousands of acres of state parks and areas in such a residential area that it made no sense to build a power plant there. Sherman Farm Road was also considered an environmentally sensitive area. They cited there was some more appropriate sites that were more industrialized that would have been better suited for such a power plant. The reason why it was cited there, if you speak with some of the town elders that were involved in that process, is that our town welcomed it in, so it was kind of the path of least resistance. So if you want to say that the EFSB has not made any mistakes, I would argue that, they have made mistakes. We all make mistakes. And having a 3-person board only increases the chances of those mistakes, which is why we elect so many representatives and senators. We need to make sure that we thoroughly vet, these issues and make sure we're doing the right thing. One of the members that I'm excited to see on that board, the new structure, should it pass, is water resources. Fresh, clean water is a significantly decreasing commodity. In the coming decades, I believe that the companies that control this fresh water are going to make trillions on the fresh water. I'd like to talk a little bit about the tax treaty. I've heard a lot of testimony tonight or comments from the senators that we've elected our town council members to do a certain job and we should allow them to do that job. If we don't like that, we can elect new town council members. That's all well and good, except in some instances, issues are larger than what a small body should be able to decide on fully. For example, when they wanted to propose a casino, full table gamings in Lincoln, the town of Lincoln voted on that. The town of Newport voted on that. When you're going to cite a facility that has to apply for something called a mass air pollution permit with DEM, that's a unique case. We're not talking about the citing of a Citizens Bank. We're not talking about the citing of Amica or maybe bringing PayPal to town, which I was told, is on the governor's docket. We welcome those businesses. I'd welcome all of them in Burrillville. I think those are great businesses. But when you're talking about something that knowingly pollutes and causes negative health effects, we need to hold that in a completely separate regard, in my opinion. It was, I believe, Senator Conley who mentioned something about, your town council, and I don't know if one of the attorneys up here could refresh our memory what law is on the books that said, after our town council or any town can negotiate a tax treaty, they're then going to bring it to their people for a vote, or I believe he said something like that. This legislation here, the way it's already written today, it says that the town council in the town of Burrillville is authorized to determine by ordinance or resolution the amount of taxes to be paid, and I won't read the whole thing. I'm sure it's in front of you there. So that right was actually, the way I'm reading it, was stripped of us. We've actually asked our town solicitor, when are we going to have a hearing on the proposed tax treaty? He said we're not. And so I followed up with a question along the lines of, well, when are we going to be able to comment on it? He said, you're not. I said, when are we going to find out about it? When it's done? He goes, yes, you are. So that's how apparently the law is written, or their interpretation of the law. So I firmly believe that, we need to change and modify the law. And I know there were some comments by the senators earlier that mentioned that, we don't want to get into the business of making town-specific ordinances. Well, you've already thrown your hat into that ring in this particular case because Burrillville's already mentioned in the existing law. Burrillville's already there. It's specific. We're just asking you to keep your hat in the ring, keep your foot in there, and let's talk about this. Let's make the law a little bit better. Let's work on the government transparency. Let's, give the people a chance to decide whether or not they agree with a proposal in front of them. It's a negotiation. So let the town council negotiate, bring it to the people. Let us look at it. Let us digest it. I don't know if anyone said it yet tonight, and I believe someone's going to get up here and say it because they always do, that, whoever has the most money generally wins if we give it to a vote to a people. And they might also imply that, you know, we're not smart enough or we're not equipped enough to digest the tax treaty and vote on it. Well, how is it that we're intelligent enough and smart enough to elect senators and representatives and town council members, but now all of a sudden we're not smart enough or intelligent enough to actually digest and vote on whether or not we agree with the terms of a tax treaty? And the way this is written, should we vote no, this doesn't stop the power plant. All this does is it gives them two options. One, go back to the table, renegotiate, come back to us when you have something better, and it'll give us a chance to provide feedback at that point. And if we like what they come back with next time, maybe we'll vote for it. Should we not come to a resolution, the power plant has every right to be built, and they'll go on our tax rolls at their assessed value or appraised value, and they'll pay, you know, their appropriate tax rate. So I don't really understand why there's so much opposition on this bill. You know, either way, the power plant can be built. So, you know, I strongly urge you to support this legislation. Any questions?
Are there any questions or comments? Senator Archibald.
Thank you. You did a nice job with your testimony, but let's just clarify just a couple of quick things and we can move on. The analogies about Lincoln and whether or not to build a casino, the analogy earlier about whether or not to, what was the analogy? The other analogy, Newport, what?
I know what,
okay.
We have a witness speaking here.
Those analogies aren't accurate because this piece of legislation doesn't give any ability or authority for you to decide whether or not to have the power plant. It increases the number of members on a board that would then make an advisory decision. So let's be clear. I understand there's a search for an analogy. Those analogies, as heartfelt as they are, let me finish. As sincere and as heartfelt as they are, they're not accurate, okay? So what we look for up here is the most objective things that we can have to make the best determination that we possibly can. So I say that kindly because I don't say things I don't mean. You did a nice job, but don't use those analogies anymore because let me finish. I listened patiently to you. I know you get a lot. Let me finish. Those aren't accurate analogies. That's the first thing. Secondly, and respectfully, your reasoning, you did a nice job, but it's a bit circular. You took yourself back to where the real point that is before us is. And this is where we should really focus, and that is whether or not we, as a body, think that this piece of legislation's intent to have the voters, by referendum, have a final say in a tax treaty that the council is in first position to negotiate should be passed. Mm-hmm. That's the question. You learn in law, and we're dealing with law here, that you frame things in questions. That's the question. That's the question. Not whether or not by passing this or not passing this, we're going to approve or disapprove the power plant. It's not before us. You're passionate about it, and I didn't jump in on the gentleman from the Land Trust. He testifies before the Environmental Committee, often does a fine job. But you bring up the same point again. It's worth noting, okay? And we don't have, there's not a debate here. It's just, that's not before us. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Senator Lombardi.
I just want to clarify for the record, you had quoted Senator Conley, and certainly Senator Conley doesn't need me to defend him, but what Senator Conley said is, in a typical tax treaty situation, the town council goes and negotiates the tax treaty, but then the tax treaty has to be vetted in public at a town council meeting. It doesn't go to a referendum. It goes to a town council meeting where you're able to be there and speak against or in favor of that tax treaty. That's the transparency that Senator Conley was talking about. Okay?
Okay, so to address that real quick, so according to our town solicitor, the way the law was already written, with specifically calling out Burrillville in regards to taxing energy generating facilities, that they're not required to do that.
I'm not going to. I certainly don't want to debate because my whole, with all due respect to my colleague Senator Fogarty, my whole concept of the democratic process in Burrillville seems to be an issue tonight. But your solicitor, if your solicitor said that you're not able to have an open forum on a tax treaty at a town council meeting after that treaty is negotiated, I would respectfully submit that your solicitor is wrong.
Noted. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Senator Archambault, You drew maybe I misspoke. You thought I was making an analogy with the structure of the EFSB board and voting on, the Newport Casino and the Lincoln Casino. That wasn't my analogy. My analogy that I intended was saying voting on the tax treaty is similar to voting on some of those things, meaning like, do we want, the increased tax revenue? So I just want to make that clear. So I believe my analogy is pretty accurate and correct, sir.
Yeah, respectfully, I disagree, but you're doing a nice job. So,
Thanks.
Anybody who has the courage to say what you're saying and doing the job you do, I admire it. So,
thanks. I'd also like to bring up a point, part of the reasons why some of us are here, because, I have a master's degree in engineering, so we've been trying to, understand the whole process here, like you're an attorney, and, I've been trying to educate the townsfolk. Look, that's fine. Hey,
school committee member, did you know that?
And you used to be my town council member. I voted for you, by the way. Thank you. Yeah, when I lived in Smithfield. So you're welcome. I lost my train of thought here. Hold on one second.
You want to reconsider what you said?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I still have a lot of friends in Smithfield, too.
Good man.
As well as the rest of the state. Hold on one second. One other thing I would like to bring up is that, you talk about electing a town council and letting them do their job. In the application on here, that Invenergy has submitted, and it's also in some DEM permits, there's something called, and I'm paraphrasing, a high impact zone, which is a radius of 3 kilometers. None of our town council members live within this high impact zone. So it's very difficult, in my opinion, for them to be completely objective and looking out for us, if they don't live in that high impact zone. So that's something significant to note. And also, as well as, doing my engineering thing, I'm also a realtor, and I can tell you that when I work with a client and we negotiate a deal, and when their parents, he says, I want you to talk to my parents, the first thing I think of, I go back and I look and I'm like, all right, did I make any mistakes here? Because all of a sudden the red flags go up, and I have to look through, and sometimes maybe I have, sometimes maybe I haven't. We all make mistakes. So to say that the people overlooking the town council and Invenergy over this negotiations, to say that that's not going to help our town and to help get a better deal for us, I respectfully disagree with any opposition to that.
That is an excellent analogy.
Thank you.
That is exactly on point. That's the analogy you use, all right? Good analogy.
Are there any other questions or
I
comments?
respectfully agree.
At this point in time,